name is Jonathan Trevino, and this is God's Business Podcast.
All right, man. So, well, the way that this podcast is going to run, the way that this sort of runs, it's in person and virtual. So right now we're trying out you're going to be my first virtual sort of like interview. So bear with me here. But for the most part, the goal of the podcast itself, it's called God's Business Podcast, and the goal of the podcast is so that we can help share the glory and the message of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and God's power and how he works in our life and in our business. So I'm a new sort of, I guess, Christian in a way. Like, I'm a new believer and a follower and disciple of Christ. And what I've noticed, is that when you go to other people who are also followers and truly walking in the Spirit with Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit, that everyone has a unique sort of story and a unique sort of testimony. So, I've been led to create this podcast and to share the light of what he provides to the entrepreneurs or the kingdom makers, as the way I look at it, because I believe that Jesus is the King of Kings, and we are sort of like we help build his kingdom here on earth, right? The kingdom of God here on earth. So the reason why we started the podcast is so that we can help share that to other aspiring entrepreneurs and other aspiring kind of figures or business professionals who may be in my situation when, I'm 33 now, and, my whole life I've been in business, but I didn't find Christ until I was 32. So 32 years of just being sort of like living life. And of course, being lost. And so I say all that to say, the goal of the podcast is really so that we can help understand and provide some real true perspective from business owners who are allowing God to work in their life and in their business, and to really provide that sort of like idea of, or that sort of testimony of, why do you feel that God, is really working in your business? How do you know, and just to really bring to light, because there are very evident things that, people who do follow Christ and do this spiritual aspect of business are, having. And so I guess all that to say, that's the preface of the podcast itself. And so what I want to do now is just, before we hop into like the whole, how God works in your business, I think it's very important that, I have here, my name is Jonathan Deleon. This is Jonathan Trevino, right? That's how you pronounce it. Okay. Jonathan Trevino. You have double Jonathans here on this podcast right now. And so, name is of course, extremely important. So why don't you tell me and whoever's listening would be, who is Jonathan Trevino, and what is your business itself?
Well, I'm a South Texas, born and raised. I've grown up on a ranch, mostly out in the country, pretty much my whole life. Lived in San Antonio for a little bit, got a little bit of city living, came back home to my hometown of Goliad, Texas, and that's where I'm based out of now. Man, I'd say I was born and raised as a Jehovah's Witness, and that's since changed a little bit and evolved. I'm still still a practicing Christian, but not necessarily with Jehovah's Witnesses anymore. What kind of got me started on my entrepreneurship journey, man? It's been kind of a wild ride, honestly. I'm 24 years old, and I'd say every single year I've been blessed in a different way, right? Whether it's in the business with a spiritual knowledge coming from God, or just growth and development, and all that glory goes to God, of course. So a little bit of background on like my first business and what got me started. When I was 17, I got kicked out of my house. I kind of lived on my own for a little bit. Perfectly fine. I kind of got away from my religion at that point a little bit. Lived on my own, decided to move to San Antonio for a job opportunity. And while I was in San Antonio, I remember thinking in my head, like, man, I'm just not happy working for somebody else. And at the time I was working at a warehouse, like on night shift, and I had a second job in the oil field, and I was just kind of labor. doing like labor contracting work out there. And I remember there was one night in particular where I was actually, it was a really good night shift. We were really slow, and I had a lot of time to talk to my coworkers. And, topic of religion comes up, and everybody's discussing their beliefs. And something about that conversation, it struck me, because at that point I'd already probably been about 2 years out of my religion, and I kind of lost my relationship with God there for that 2-year period. And growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, it kind of went from, you're out in field service preaching the good word, right? About anywhere from 4 to 6 days a week. We have church 2 or 3 days a week as well. And so going from that to nothing at all, it definitely made a pretty big impact. So when we're having these conversations, it kind of got me thinking, man, I've been kind of inactive. I lost my faith. What do I need to do to get back into it? And so this is happening. So I start reading my Bible again. And one of the verses that I read, I believe it's in the book of Matthew. Basically, he says, "Here I am, and I myself will search for my sheep, and I will care for them." And there's also another Bible reference, I believe it's in Psalm, if I'm not mistaken, where he talks about how he will search for, even if he has 99 sheep and even one goes missing, he will search for that one sheep until he finds them. And that I remember that night after I got home reading that verse, it brought me to tears, because I realized I kind of strayed away. I felt in that moment like that one lost sheep. And that really, it hit me really hard. When I said I broke down in tears, man, it was a full on cry, a good cry, right? It was for a good reason. So after reading that, I started reading my Bible again. I started going from the beginning, just the book of Genesis. And I'm like, I'm going to read 10 chapters every single night, no matter what, and just get through the whole Bible. And as I read, right, I started realizing you go through 10 chapters, eventually I realized, 10 chapters is, for me, it was hard to take in, sometimes 10 chapters at a time. Some of the chapters are really long, and I wanted to make sure I was getting quality as well. I was able to focus and really meditate. So I ended up shortening it down to about between 1 and 5 a night, and making sure I was meditating and reflecting on what he was saying, kind of a quality over quantity. So this is happening. I'm still working for the warehouse at this point. And finally, there was a day at the warehouse where I was like, man, I'm kind of tired of being on somebody else's schedule and doing all this work for somebody else. I feel like I could have a lot more influence and do a lot more if I had my own business, right? So it kind of led me down this little separate journey of trying to become an entrepreneur. And this is at the same time that I'm rebuilding my faith. I'm doing a little bit of research, and finally I decide on I was looking at ATM machines, vending machines, and like laundromats, things like that. Something small that had a low buy-in, to be able to make a little bit of money on the side, right? So I thought it over, and I still remember I actually prayed about it, because I thought, whatever I do, I still have to have time to practice the Word of God and meditate and read, and who better to ask for guidance and look at reference in the Bible and God, right?
Amazing. Yeah.
So prayed about it, and it took me probably about a week of just solid reflection, and finally we landed on ATMs. So I'd go around from business to business. I think I actually started with my barber up there in San Antonio. I remember this was right before COVID. This was 2020, probably January, like 2 months before it really hit. So I'm at my barber's getting a haircut, and have my credit card, pull it out, and this is my first time over there. So I hand it to him after the cut, and he says, "Oh, I'm really sorry, man. We only take cash." I remember thinking, boom, this is my first. This is wrong for my first ATM machine. So I bought an ATM machine, a refurbished one, for about $1,000. I saved up as much money as I could while working for at the warehouse. Saved up my $2,000 cash and bought the ATM machine. Worked out a deal with the barbershop owner and placed down the first ATM machine. Boy, I was grateful. I was very grateful for the opportunity.
Wow.
So placed that one down, and after that, once you kind of it's kind of encouraging once you start off on an entrepreneurship journey like that, where you start, even if it's only $50 that you make profit.
Yeah.
That $50 that you make on your own, and in this case with God's help, it's very it's encouraging, and it makes you want to continue that journey. So I was like, wow, if I can make $50-$60 off of just this one each week, if I had like 10 more of these, man, I could be making my whole paycheck every single month.
Right.
And so it basically became rinse and repeat. And there was some sacrifice involved. Like I went down from, I love food. I'm a big, I'm a big food lover. And
Okay.
so I went from, trying to eat out every other day or every single day to, tuna and ramen for a little while, just
Mhm.
eating real basic, real cheap. And, I cut down on kind of all the distractions too. And like
Mhm.
TV and some of the like social media and the internet, anything that wasted time, I put it to the side. And it was basically for a long time there, just wake up, I'd be working, I'd get home, meditate, pray, read the word of God, and then go to sleep and do it all again. And then I work on the business on the side, right? And that was my life there for about a solid 2 years as I was trying to scale that ATM business. And man, to be honest with you, I felt very fulfilled. I felt like I was building something. And at that time, maybe at that time I didn't have as much clarity around what it was, but looking back on it now, I do think it was God's influence, His Holy Spirit kind of guiding and directing me, and that's part of why I felt that it was kind of it was a really warm feeling, but I also felt like I was fulfilling a purpose. And in my mind, like I said, looking back, that was definitely God leading me in the direction that He wanted me to go. So I'm very grateful. That's why every time I tell this story about how I got started in business, yes, it was hard work, and
Mhm.
it did take some sacrifice, but it was worth it, and none of it would have been possible without our Creator. So anyway, so back to the scaling, right? So anyway, about 2 years later, I've scaled up to about 50 different locations across San Antonio, Austin, branching even into like Houston areas and some of the smaller towns in between. So a lot of growth. It went from, just me basically refilling my ATM machines to, okay, now I have 10, 20 employees that are helping me out across different
There you
locations.
go. Okay.
That was really, really cool. It definitely led to a different dynamics. I'd never had employees before.
True.
Right? That's different. And so learning how to deal with people and lead effectively and influence in a positive way, because
Mhm.
in my mind, it's one thing to be just like a manager, right?
Mhm.
And a manager is someone who you just kind of tell people what to do. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But in
Right.
my mind, at that point, I've been reading the word for a lot longer, and I felt like I had more clarity. And I realized like I need to be positively impacting other people,
Mhm.
and hopefully something that I say or do, or I have some positive influence that leads them back to God. And so I realized, wow, like I don't need to be a manager. I need to be a leader in a way. So a leader leads from the front. He's concerned about it. He takes care of his employees, right?
Mhm.
And so I thought, okay, if I can, who better role model for leadership than Jesus, right?
Mhm.
He's God is the Almighty Creator. He gave us the best gift we could ever receive, which was Jesus, and Jesus embodied all of the best and most wonderful attributes and qualities we could ever strive for, right? So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to start reading more into the Gospels and see how Jesus treated his apostles, his disciples, and his followers, and what can I do to have a positive influence on my employees to help, even if they don't start, they don't convert immediately, right? Because my goal was not conversion. My goal was to have a
Yeah.
positive impact initially. What can
Right.
I And so it led to we actually had these big group chats with all 20 employees where we'd all at the end of each day, or we'd get done with the routes, we'd send scriptures back and forth, or we just talk
Nice.
about the day. We'd have group calls. So it was really encouraging, and I still keep in touch with a lot of those guys even to this day. So it definitely that gave me a lot more perspective on what it means to be an owner in a business and have employees, people that kind of rely on you, because it can get stressful if you don't throw your burdens on God, right? And without His example, I definitely would not have been able to do any of that. So anyway, so we scaled the business. Things are great. And about January of 2022, 2 years later, I decide, okay, I think it's time to sell the business. I'd really been enjoying running the business, but I wanted to go into a new avenue. Wanted to try something a little bit different. And the nice thing is, once you have a little bit of capital saved up, it opens up other avenues and other areas where you can explore business-wise, right? So I thought, okay, well, what else can I do? And I landed on SMMAs, so social media marketing agencies. It's kind of basically a digital marketing agency. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'll sell the ATM business. I'm going to take some of the savings that I get from that, reinvest and use it to live for a little while, like its next business up and running. So I decided I sold the business off, opened it up, and I focused on San Antonio again in that market. San Antonio, we have a lot of different contractors. So for like landscapers, builders, window cleaners, you name it. And all these contractors, they're really good at focusing at their jobs. They're usually not great at marketing their services. And so I decided, okay, this is gonna be my kind of my target niche and my demographic. I'm gonna go after these contractors. And again, more prayer and deliberation, and felt like the right move. So I started reaching out to different. I started with landscapers, and I remember there was this one man in particular. His name, I've been doing cold email outreach to these different landscapers.
Okay.
This one man comes back to me. His name is Telly, and Telly, he gives me a call on the phone from the email. And he says, man, I'm actually really glad you sent me that email. You have no idea how much I've been struggling to get my website up, to get my media strategy going. I don't know how I'm gonna like get more clients. Yeah, I guess he was down to he was in a tough spot. He had a few clients. There'd been a real tough like drought in Texas, and so his business slowed down. So get on the call, I'm like, hey, I'd love to help you out. Let's see what we can do. Well, we ended up signing him. Just to build a website, run some ads, help him with the marketing side, bring some more business back to his service. About a month after we started working together, we see results. Everything's going real well. And one of the days he calls me up one evening. It's a Saturday night. I'm like, man, like, why is he calling on a Saturday night? He's off. Like he's always off on Saturdays and Sundays. He's also he believes in God, and I know he's always at church on Sunday. So why is he calling me Saturday night? So I pick up the phone, answer. He says, hey, man, he's like, I just want to let you know, I really appreciated your help. The night that you sent that email to me, I'd actually been praying to God for help because I didn't know how I was going to pay my bills and take care of my family for the next few weeks and next months. And you've really helped me out. And so what I realized in that instance was, I appreciated it, the call, but what it really was God uses us in different ways to answer other people's prayers. So you never know when an action you take or something you say is God using you to help somebody else out, right? Mm-hmm. And so in my mind, I was like, wow, like this it's such a positive, it's such a great thing to know that you've helped somebody out in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so after that conversation, the other thing that kind of hit home for me is it made me realize too, like, wow, like as a business owner and like a marketing agency, it's kind of my purpose and where I get my sense of fulfillment now is I help people keep their businesses running. I help them feed their families and thrive. And so that kind of, it lit a different fire. And it's like, wow, I can really have I can fulfill this purpose in a different way now, right? A little bit different from the ATM business. It's now I get to influence these other business owners around me. And so that led to a year of insane growth. I would be lying if I said it was easy. I think my first 3 months, when I would bring people on, anything they needed done, I'd say, okay, yeah, I can do that. Let's run with it and we'll get it done. And I would have no idea how to actually fulfill the service, right? So that was a learning lesson for me in kind of, I guess, humility and not being so stubborn and hard-headed. I learned how to do a lot in those first 3 months, whether it was websites or managing ads or whatever the case was. SEO, I learned how to get people ranked SEO just from sheer pressure to get it done.
So you did that yourself, or you hired other people to help you with that?
So I started out on my own.
Okay.
In my mind, I was thinking if I can outsource, but if I don't know what a good result looks like, how am I going to be able to judge the result, right? If I outsource. And so so it was a solid, I'd say even 6 months of kind of being forged in fire a little bit, right? Being sharpened. With a lot of different technical skills and learning how to actually run a successful marketing agency, because there's a lot to it. Realistically, it's not as simple as just, let me create this really cool looking ad and run it. Like there's so much more. And so it led me to have a deeper appreciation for business in general, right? In my agency. The other thing that, anytime that any lesson you learn in business and Jonathan, I'm sure you'll relate to this too. Any lesson you learn in business, you can see where it applies to other areas of life as well, right? Mm-hmm. And so I realized, man, if there's all these like little small details that change like how an ad performs, right? Like maybe even the background color changes how it performs. So I thought, man, like when I'm reading my Bible every night, am I actually looking at like what detail am I going into? Like there's so many, when you read the Bible, there's so many, all the actual like the footnotes and the clauses, like what I could be getting more. There's so much more I could be getting out of my Bible readings each night. And the one thing at that time that was happening too is, I had those 2.5 solid years of success. It's really easy to get kind of distracted. And I had a solid routine where I was still reading every night. But when you're in that deep routine, and this is with anything in life, it's really easy to stagnate and get comfortable in a routine. If you want to grow, and especially with God, right? If you want to grow with God and build this deeper connection with him, it's not just about reading your Bible every night, closing the book and going to sleep, right? It's about actually, again, reflecting on and meditating on what you've learned. And even if it doesn't matter if you've gone through the Bible only one time, if you haven't gone through it at all, or if you've gone through it 100 times, you need to be striving to learn something new and deepen that connection with God every single time you open up the Bible and read. And for me at that point, I realized, wow, it was kind of, what changed it for me, it basically made me look at my Bible reading and my nightly routine. And am I building a deeper connection with God, or is this just something I'm now checking off my to-do list, right? And you never want that. You don't want that to be the case. So I kept my same 5 chapters, but this time I would basically reflect and see how I could apply it in my own day. I have a notebook at home that I started with. And so every single day, then I'd read the scripture. I would pray, meditate, and then I would reflect in the journal. This is how this applies to me, and this is what I can do. This is what I could have done today to apply this first, and this is what I'm going to do tomorrow now to live and act out God's word, right? Make it my own way of living. And so I think that from the marketing agency perspective, that it's kind of weird how it works, right? It kind of deepened my faith in this indirect way by reminding me, like, it's good to be uncomfortable and to look for reasons to grow, because it is really easy once you get in a routine, like I said, to get too comfortable and stagnate. So at that point, and that realization led me down a whole other rabbit trail with my marketing agency. Like, wow, there's so many other services I could be providing and other niches I could be going after. Like, why am I just focused on contractors? So I from there I ended up delving into real estate and property developers. I changed my niche a little bit.
Okay.
I went to real estate agents in particular. I was like, okay, well, this is a thriving market in San Antonio and in Austin, especially at that time, because Austin was growing. Let me see if I can help them with just like lead generation, something real simple. Maybe I can help people out that way.
Right.
So, and at that point, I built a few connections. A lot of the real estate agents and realtors, they work with a lot of the landscapers and different contractors to get work done before they sell a house. So I networked around a little bit, and I found a handful of real estate agents that I could help with lead development. So ran that route, did that for about another 3 or 4 months. I saw pretty good results there, and I enjoyed it. And then when I started looking at the big picture, I thought, wow, I'm working with a lot of individuals right now. What if I worked with larger businesses and upscaled a little bit more? And so that led me into the property development and like commercial real estate structure. And that it kind of changed the way that my marketing agency worked. It became less of a marketing agency and more of a like a networking agency is how I would describe it. So instead of running ads and doing sales development and SEO, I would basically go in. If property developer A wanted a meeting with this, maybe the owner of this apartment complex, right? I would go in and help make the meeting happen. I connect people. And I'll tell you, that was a really cool process, because then it became less about just that, like the business side, and it became more about making connections with people and building relationships. And that led to a lot of really great friendships. I met a lot of really, really amazing people. And it also led to a lot of really deep conversations too. Once you start working with someone right on a continual basis, you develop a friendship with your coworkers in a way. And I consider my coworkers, my clients. A lot of them were men in their probably 60s, and had so much experience in life.
Yeah.
And they were almost always extremely religious, and so it kind of changed the perspective for me. I don't want to say perspective, but the experience. 'Cause at this point, I've been so used to kind of going on my own.
Mhm.
I read my Bible and I reflect on my own. And it was always about me and what I knew.
Uh-huh.
Working with them and getting to know those guys, I realized, wow, they have a level of depth and wisdom, because I mean they have so many more years of experience on me, right?
Mhm.
In the Bible and running their businesses, with their families. And so I got to learn a lot about life in general from them. And it gave me a different perspective on where I was at in life. And I realized, wow, like I've had this really amazing journey so far, but there's still so much more growing in personal development and spiritual growth that I have to do yet. And so it kind of opened my eyes again, where I'm like, wow, I'm really like, right now I'm still nothing. And
Right.
I mean that in a good way, right? It was
Yeah.
an eye opening, and it definitely humbled me, because the one thing that you're always battling, or at least I am as an entrepreneur, it seems like, is a little bit of the ego and the arrogance, right? It's easy to let that side, like, oh, I've done so well, I've learned all these skills, I've built a business up, and I'm making money for myself, right? It's really easy to let that negative talk slip in and influence how you see the world. And once you let it in, it's like putting on a different pair of glasses, and it
Right.
changes how you see everything. And so it kind of also it undermined that ego a little bit. And at first I was a little bit like, I was admittedly, I'll be a little vulnerable. I was frustrated with myself too for letting that happen.
Mhm.
But then it came back to me remembering, like, I would not be here if it wasn't for God. Like, no matter what happens, what success, what growth, what opportunities, it's all because I relied on Jehovah.
Mhm.
I relied on God. If it hadn't been through him, then I would be nothing. So the opportunities I have, I should be grateful for. So there's no reason to be upset. There's no reason to be hurt, or there's no reason to let ego, cause this little slip.
Yeah.
And so it's a good reminder for myself to this day, and hopefully for the rest of my life going forward. It's ego can get in the way. It will stumble you in your business, with your family, your relationships, and most importantly, with your faith. It's one of the it's it God is perfect and his word is perfect.
Mhm.
Humans, we are imperfect. And so if we trip and stumble, it's a good idea to look at yourself, and when you do trip, 'cause it happens to everybody.
Mhm.
Why? What did I do? And that it's all about reflection.
Yeah.
So I'd say that yeah, that changed me a little bit then too. This is one of those pivotal points for me, where it made me think about my business again. And so this is about a year in to the digital marketing agency, and
Mhm.
I just thought, wow, I think I've been enjoying this too, but I want to try something else again. So April of 2023, a little over a year later, I sold the digital marketing agency. And this time I had even more capital. I thought, the work that I actually really enjoyed from growing up when I was an employee was the oil field. Something about working in plants and different, like, processing facilities for, like, ethanol, gasoline, diesel.
Okay.
I enjoyed that kind of thing.
Okay.
I thought, okay, well, what can I do in that industry? Because I'm not going to open up a rig. I don't really see myself doing that. What can I do instead that's a little less expensive?
Right.
And I came up with labor contracting. So a lot of the companies I mean, it could be a chemical plant, plastic, it could be, again, in the natural gas industry. A lot of their labor is contracted out. So I thought, wow, actually, I've met a lot of really amazing people on my journey, that are hard workers. They're reliable. I trust them. I think I'd like to grow a business with them in it.
Mhm.
So I basically put together this team of oil field experts, and I bid on my first contract out there in Hondo, Texas, at a little ethanol facility. And all we did was, if they needed a tank of ethanol or product moved out to another location, or a rail car, or a semi truck, my company, we were the ones that would turn the wrenches and move the product. We were the feet on the ground, the boots on the ground, so to speak. And that's what I've been doing these past 2.5 years now. And
Mhm.
that's given me, I think, out of all my businesses, it's been my favorite so far.
Nice.
I've met It's been my favorite too, because I've been able to scale it a lot farther than any of the other businesses I've had before. So right now I'm servicing about 52 locations. I'm getting ready to take on actually my 53rd
Nice.
out here in Cedar, Texas. And we've expanded from ethanol out to like plastics. So like Dow Chemical, we do some work for them, and Vista, Ineos, things like that. And that's been a really cool journey, because it's different than what I've done before, and it's pretty it can be dangerous work at times. And so it's a whole different set of processes. You're always concerned about safety, and you're always, I mean, we just had this freeze recently. We were talking about right before the call. A lot of our cooling tanks, or even the heating tanks that we use to heat up or cool down product, all that stuff is broken. So that's what I'm dealing with later today. But what's been really cool about this is, because it's been scaling so well, and it's different industries, I've been able to bring on a lot more employees. So I have about 620 employees right now. By the end of this year, I should be closer to 1,000. And what I'm starting to see now, and where I want to take it, so every business, right? In my mind, there's got to be another purpose behind it, right? So in my mind, it's not just about moving oil around or moving ethanol, right?
Right.
I see it, and the way I've tried to help my guys see it, so it's less of a mundane task going to work. Because really, I mean, most people who enjoys going to work and working a 12-hour shift, right? It's usually not that fun. You can't blame someone.
Sure.
The way that I've started to see it is whenever like someone needs to get to work, right? They have to drive somewhere. They got to go visit family. You're gonna go fly to visit your family. You're gonna go drive even to church. You're gonna go pick up grocery store. You got to put gas in your car, right? Without gas, you can't move around. Without diesel, the trucks won't deliver. They can't deliver groceries to the grocery stores. They can't get during the natural disasters actually. When the grocery stores aren't open, they bring in all the 18-wheelers full of food, right? Well, they have to have diesel to get there. The whole supply chain is run on some type of fuel, right? Whether it's your own car or the 18-wheelers that's pulling a load from the warehouse down the highway. Without that fuel, everything collapses. It's really hard to get goods from point A to point B. It just doesn't work. I mean, even look at for power plants, you don't generate electricity without oil and natural gas. They still use it even at electric power plants to create electricity. And so the job that we have is very important.
Yeah.
And there's meaning behind it. So it's not just loading a truck with gasoline to send to a gas station. You're helping people get to the grocery store, to church, get back home, visit family members. And so anytime I bring people in, I try to instill, I try to show them this is what it means to work here. This 12 hours, you just helped, we do 8,000 gallons of gas per trailer. We might do 100 trailers per day in one location alone. I mean, you've helped 1,000 people get around. That's nothing small. That's a pretty big feat. You've personally helped 1,000 people get around and carry out their lives comfortably. And so on top of that, I also talking about leadership again, right? Especially in a larger company, it's easy when you have a lot of employees to kind of, I'm not going to say forget about them because they're there doing the work, but it's easy to become sidetracked with what you're doing as a business owner and forget about the people who are doing the actual work for you, right? Because they're really the frontline people, frontline workers.
Mm-hmm.
They're the lifeline of my business. So if they're helping me run my business and be successful and do everything that I need to do, what can I do in return to help them?
Mm-hmm.
And so one really cool, and it took a little while to implement this, but we started out with paying for college and tuition costs, right? So now I'm offering, they have their full benefits. And my goal is if they want to, let's say I have somebody that's working for me that wants to become a computer programmer, right? Their dream is to be a software developer.
Right.
Okay. I want to help you get there. Even if it means you're not going to work for me.
Sure.
I want to let me help you because you helped me. And so we're paying for tuition costs. The other thing that we're doing now too, because in my field, I have a lot of, I'd say 50% of my employees, they don't even have high school diplomas. They never graduated. And so that's a really good opportunity to help people there, right? Because it's once you get past 21, 22, it's hard to go back in and get your diploma afterwards. Like there are online degree programs, but then there's cost, and then there's a little bit of the ego behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So what we started offering is our own. We basically sponsor. I call it a sponsorship, but we pay for their GED. I drop down their workload, so instead of working 4 or 5 days a week, they work 2 to 3. They still get paid the full-time week, and the only requirement on their end is that they are taking their courses and they're going to graduate with their GED or their full high school diploma within the next year, just to help them get started. And the other thing too, on top of that, is okay, once you get your diploma, that's I want you to continue with that education. So whether I want you in that 1 year to decide what it is you want to do with your life. Like, do you want to stay in this business and keep working for them? Because I'd love, if they want to stay, perfect. I'd love to keep them. But if they want to, again, software development, maybe they want to become a welder. Maybe they want to run their own business. Maybe they want to become a banker. They want to go in real estate, right? Whatever their dream is and whatever they think is going to fulfill them and help them get to where they need to go, we are going to help them. And we'll do that through setting up like maybe it's a meeting with a college counselor, a career counselor, and then getting them set up in a trade school or going to actual college for maybe it's associates, maybe it's a bachelor's degree. Just push them through, that way they can get where they need to go. And so that's been actually really successful. We just rolled that out about 3 months ago. It's a brand new thing that we finally started doing. It took a lot of planning and deliberation. I'm really, really blessed to have an amazing management team around me. They've all the guys that are managing my different locations, whether it's regional, their district, or their site manager. They all share the same goal and vision that I have, and I'm really lucky that they're all God-fearing people. And so I remember when I was first pitching this idea of doing this out to my right-hand guy, his name is Jeff. He's like the second in command, pretty much. I have this tendency to go off on all these tangents, and I talk too fast sometimes, and I'm spewing out all these ideas and like, well, what if this and what if this, and his response was, you need to go home and you need to stop talking and just think about it for a little while, because you're stressing us out and you're going to stress yourself out, right?
Dang, yeah.
And so, but it was good feedback, because he was right. I was probably a little bit overzealous in that moment, a little too eager, but it gave me a chance to go home, and because when I had that idea, I remember I was just all these ideas, right, coming to my mind.
Yeah.
But what I forgot to do in that moment was pray and reflect, right? And so in these moments when we're feeling stressed, even if it's like, I'd say that's not a bad stress, it's probably a good stress, right? Because it's something I'm excited for.
Right.
But even in those moments where you're feeling like overwhelming joy, you still need to turn to God and pray and reflect. And whether it's being grateful or asking for guidance or whatever it is you need to do, you need to do it. Doesn't matter if you're going to prayer and going to God for help, or in the really high moments of your life where you're feeling really good. You have to go back and and reflect and pray and meditate and read the word. And that's kind of a recurring theme that I've noticed, and that's why I mentioned ego earlier with myself. Is sometimes I'll get really excited, and it's not a bad thing. I get really happy about things. I get really excited, and all these thoughts come to my head, and I'll be future planning, and I remind myself now to take a step back and think, okay, what does God want me to do? And so that's when it comes back to, okay, well, I know people there's that acronym WWJD, what would Jesus do? Well, what would Jesus do? What does God say to do? What does the Bible say to do? And so that's been, I think, a key point, or a key kind of reflection point in building out this program is, okay, it's great to help people career-wise and setting up their futures, but now, like, what other ways can we help them on top of that, right? 'Cause it's not just enough to help them with their career. So then I was like, okay, well, we need to be doing more, right? There's something else that I'm missing. I could feel it. And so then it came down to, well, there's people need more than just career guidance. They need even just like life guidance in general. So then it opened up a whole nother avenue of now we offer, like, as part of our benefits program, we offer therapy. We actually now there's a new, it's kind of in the beta phase right now. if somebody wants, if I have an employee who has, let's just say they feel like they want to develop a deeper connection with God. Maybe they're atheist. Maybe they could be anybody who just
Yeah.
feels they've lost faith.
Mhm.
We have a little portal now in our computer system that allows them to go and look at the different network of churches, and it has a number for the pastor, the priest of the location, or whoever's over that church location. They can call, and they'll get guidance. They'll find out. It has all the schedules for the church services and meeting times. So try to help them get connected with God through the church. And then on top of that too, one of the great resources that I really appreciate this about the Jehovah's Witnesses, they have the whole Bible for free online. And there are
Mhm.
other, I think there's
Yeah.
other places you can read it too. They have, I think, almost every single language that exists right now. They have a copy of that translation in that
Nice.
language. And so I like to, even now, like on my phone, that's how I
Yeah.
read the Bible a lot of times. So if I'm out like at a hotel, I'll pull out my phone. I have the whole Bible on my phone to read with all my personal study notes. And so
Right.
I use that as a tool, but I also offer it to my employees, the ones that
Nice.
want
The
it,
one
right?
thing. Yeah. Mhm.
And so that's that was a route that I probably wouldn't have thought to have gone down initially, had I not had like my friend, my right hand man Jeff, tell me that day, hey, you need to go back and think about this a little bit deeper. Like you're missing you're
Yeah.
doing it too hard and too much.
Yeah.
And I think that's also been a really good opportunity. Sometimes like some employees, maybe they're perfectly happy where they're at. They don't want to continue with school, but they still need some kind of guidance or help, right? And that's
Right.
I'm not in a position. None of us are in a position to give that guidance to them. It really truly needs to come from God, and so that gives them another avenue to do that. So that's something I think I'm really happy about. My company and all these endeavors, we've been really blessed to be able to help other people in the journey of their lives and helping them to become better people. I think that's one thing right now that's really important, especially in this day and age with social media and all these negative influences, is having a positive influence on the opposite side that builds people up instead of
Yeah.
tearing them down. And so that's
Wow.
kind of where we're at right now. I definitely, I know for a fact there's going to be a lot more in the future. There'll be more callings, there'll be more thoughts, more inspiration, more blessings, and also on top of that too, more challenges and more growth.
Right.
But that's a good thing. That's a great thing.
Yeah.
And you never want to stagnate. So I'm excited to see how the next 5, 10, 20, 30, the rest of my life plays out. I'm excited for it.
Dude.
All thanks to God.
Wow. Well, Jonathan, you gave me more than I could ever have asked for in that. And I think that, I guess first off, thank you for sharing. Secondly, I absolutely am very confident that God put you in this particular position to share with me today, because that was everything that, I could have ever asked to hear. And man, dude, I mean, literally, I have like notes, like multiple pages of notes, like multiple, just like notes. But brother, like, I'm blessed to have this opportunity to even talk to you, and really, even the way that we met, right? Just in general, the way that we met was just so, like people could call it random. I call it's God's timing, God's way, and he works in our way when we need it. And so what I'm going to try to do here is try to recap what you said,
Okay.
so that I guess first off, I want to understand it. And then, if I understand it all correctly, I was actually able to reflect on a lot of what you said, and some of it was led to the Bible. So I hope by doing this recap, it could be helpful for you. I mean, I know I had all these questions, but brother, you gave me more than I could even have asked for. So I believe, and what is going on with what you just told me is your life basically has been a series of leveling up, right?
Yes.
And it started with, you mentioned before, I guess I'll just start chronologically. You mentioned before is like, your life was sort of in shambles. Would you agree? In
Oh
the
yeah,
beginning?
definitely,
In the
definitely.
beginning, you were lost your way, you were the lost sheep, and you were sort of in shambles. And it was not a person, it was not like let me take that back. It was not a human being. It was not a, person here on this world who was able to help you like get back on track in the way that your purpose that God has intended for you to have. It wasn't like you talked to this person and this, or you went to this pastor, you went to this priest. It was your relationship with God and your willingness to further connect with him and Jesus, and read the Bible for yourself and try to basically seek and you shall find, right? Knock and the door shall be opened unto you, right? And
Yeah,
and it was your willingness to do that, and no one really forced you. It was like they didn't force you to go here, you have to do this, and then your life is going to get better. It was like your willingness to do that. Would you agree that that's how you started this sort of like journey?
definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And then it also sounds like God led you to your first business,
Oh,
right?
100%.
Like
100.
100%. Yeah. And you even said like you prayed for it, like, and he literally gave you that ATM like it was between an ATM and what was the other one?
It was the ATM machine and then the vending machine. Was it ATM or vending machine or?
ATM or vending machine. Exactly. Exactly. And then he led these people and your barber, right? The opportunity, you gave it to God. Basically, you gave it to God and you let him say, hey, please lead me in the right way. Please lead me in the direction that you need me to go to do your will. And
Yeah.
so in that moment, right, he led you because you asked, he literally led you. And he gave it very clearly that, hey, this barbershop only takes cash. They have no ATM here.
Yep.
It was a problem. It was a problem that you were able to solve because you gave it to God, right? And
Definitely.
he led you there. And so I think like the theme of that, like leading you to your first business, was like what I love the verse is because it's a great commandment that we operate by, is this Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be provided unto you. Right. And so that's exactly what you did, right? You were in shambles and then you put God first and then you let God lead you, and he led you to that ATM business, which that ATM business then led you to even more of a business direction, right? Now you had to learn how to take on employees. You basically had to level up. You had to get uncomfortable and you had to put it up to God so that he provided you the direction that you were able to learn and grow and master a certain level of skills. After you did that, I guess you also mentioned God brought you your clients,
Oh yeah.
right? God brought you your clients even for the ATM machine. And
Definitely.
so you were able to also bless others, and you were able to um after walking you began to discover. After walking in faith, you began to discover your purpose. And
Yes.
so my question to you before we continue is what do you feel like you did mention you switched to the social media management or the social media market SMMA
Yeah.
business, right?
That's
You switched that and you sold the ATM shop. My
yes.
question before we continue is what allowed you, or what sort of led you to that point where you felt like, was it God who was telling you you need to change, or was it you're just, your purpose was fulfilled and you just felt needed to do bigger, or like what exactly like led you to change?
I think it was probably a combination. There was a certain fulfillment. I felt like, wow, okay, I've done what I need to do here. At that point, COVID was finally calming down, and there seemed to be a need for not just digital, but just marketing agencies in general.
Yeah.
And at that time, during that transition, I remember there was a kind of a thought. I was just starting to become more like aware, right, of this purpose and everything. I
Yeah.
remember thinking, well, there's probably another way for me to help people, because for me, ultimately, now that the purpose is to
Mhm.
help people be happy, succeed in life, and find God. And so part of that thought was, okay, well, what else can I do now what can I pivot to that's going to help other people out to maybe a greater degree than what I'm doing now. And after reflection, I landed on the marketing agencies, and it was specifically helping, like, my niche was helping in the beginning was helping struggling business owners.
Mhm.
So like Kelly was actually he ended up being like a perfect example of that, helping struggling business owners find their footing again.
Mhm.
I felt like if I could do that with a small business, and I could scale that and start helping more people out. And in my mind too, like if you're helping one company or a business owner, you're not just helping the owner, you're also helping all of his employees and their
Mhm.
families, right? Because if the owner doesn't make enough money, he can't pay
Mhm.
his employees, and if you can't pay the employees, they can't feed their families and cover their like basic needs. And so that's how in my mind, that's how I saw it. Is it was an
Okay.
opportunity to now help, instead of just individuals, now help kind of
Yeah.
whole companies and all the employees out.
I love it. And so that makes a lot of sense. And basically you let God sort of like, you've passed the first test, right? You sort of like, you went with your ATM business and you sort of like found a problem as an entrepreneur, because he's the one who gives you your visions and gives you your dreams and all this mind. I relate. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people who are entrepreneurs relate with the mind is a problem solving mind, right?
Yes.
Very much so. And so you solved that problem initially, and he gave you that ATM, the direction. So you learned how to follow his direction with the ATM business. And then he leveled you up to another problem, which the problem was, how do you help more people out who are struggling, right? The
Yes.
problem was that they have a business and they were struggling, but you were willing and able to walk in any direction God puts you so that you can help solve that. And
Yes.
so it really reminds me of like, you know, um, you're also willing to walk in that direction, because a lot of people will like, I forgot the verse itself, but it's like faith without works is dead, right? You probably heard of that. And you're actually putting your faith into work and you're willing to rise to that challenge. And so that, I believe, is what has helped you bless others, right? And then you ran that marketing agency. And then the coolest thing is the mastery there that you gained from them. Well, the mastery that you got from the ATM machine was like, employees. Like now you need to figure out, how do you actually help more people? Once
Yeah.
you figured out how do you help more people, then by hiring this, that, the other, okay, now you have that sort of thing. But now how do you figure out how to help bigger and like
Yeah.
more like bigger situations that you can actually make a bigger impact? And that's like helping on the marketing side, is like, how do I help businesses that are making impacts with other people in the community, as well as their people and their employees and their families?
Yeah.
And so like he led you through faith by doing that. And so I believe in that business, from what you told me, is that allowed you to understand that relationships were extremely important, that
Yes.
was your particular skill set. And that's what, he gave you a talent to basically understand all of these, you know, uh, people, and to figure out how to connect and to figure out how to, understand the true purpose of people. And so that's, I believe, was the next level of your, growth in that sort of like trajectory, this journey that he has you on. And so that led you to your property management and your property development kind of like business, right?
Yeah.
Because you literally said it wasn't necessarily the marketing side, the business side. It was more of just the relationships. It was
Yeah.
like networking. You were just like networking, connecting, and you found a lot more success and value in that sort of like
Yes.
networking and success itself. And so like he used your experiences, and he allowed you he led you to master relationships, which led you to hiring, which God used your experience to level you up. And then from there, I mean, brother, it's very evident for what's actually happening. Like in my mind, and I'm just trying to like try to put it down into words properly for you, but like, I mean, he's using you because you're faithful. Like that I believe that it's very evident that that's sort of what it is. And of course, like you even mentioned, like we're all, I mean, and I'm not trying to like stroke your ego or anything, like,
Yeah.
brother,
Yeah.
ego has been like ripped out of me. Like for me, like, and I'm sure for most successful business owners, ego has to be, right?
Yes.
Because you cannot have an ego, because if we understand that what business is, it's a spiritual work, and we are here growing the kingdom of God in his way. What that means is he can take that away at any time,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
At any time, he can take it all away. And at any time, he can also bless it. And so the more we're obedient and walk in faith, and so faith without works, and we don't, so like if I knew what to do and I just didn't do it, right? If I knew God was telling me to do this and I just didn't do it, that's literally me not acting. That's faith without works is dead. So
Yeah.
I would be dead, and he would not bless me in the way that he is, and same for you. And so, it's your business, your entrepreneurial progression has been very much a purpose-driven business, that you're living a life backed by God to get to that next level, to solve the problems and to solve he's giving you that purpose. And the more, and this is what I was trying to say earlier, the more you walk, the more your purpose is discovered.
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
Because you wouldn't have expected, hey, I'm a guy in shambles right now. I
Yeah.
don't know what to do. I have no idea how to handle even my own life.
Yeah.
Right? How do would you even ever think that you're in the position you're in now with 620 to 1,000 employees?
No, I definitely would not. Yeah. If you'd asked me if you'd asked me when I was 18, 19, 20 to guess where I'd be at in 5 more years, I'd say I'm probably at Target. I don't know, maybe buying a kolache somewhere. It would be something stupid.
Exactly.
And yes, it really, I like the way you put it. It's kind of, it's allowed me to level up. God has allowed me to level up through him. And so it's made me extremely grateful and appreciative. And I like that point you make about ego, right? You can't be a successful business owner and have a big ego. It doesn't work. You cause yourself to stumble that way.
Absolutely. And one point that I definitely want to make here too is God, in every situation for what you've described, your whole journey of entrepreneurship he has been your rock and the foundation, right? And that is the extremely important piece of what I'm trying to portray in this podcast, and just talking about this is like, he is the foundation. Every time, even today, you even said, like, even today, God continues to lead you,
Yep.
right, in the decisions that you need to be making. And so Jeff, right, you mentioned, he told you got to think about it. And you took that as, I need to go to God.
Yeah.
Right. I need to leave it up to God, because he's the one who's given you your business. He's the one who also gives you your clients.
Yeah.
He's also the one who gives you your employees. Of course, right? He gives it through that inspiration. He gives it through that, oh yeah, if I put an ad out here, then I can, help these people find a job. Oh yeah, if I help people understand that they're not just driving a truck, they're not just moving the wrenches, they are helping people's lives.
Yeah.
Helping the purpose, right? And so he gives you that sort of inspiration, but you would never have gotten that if you didn't just walk.
Definitely. It's God's business. It's God's business.
It's God's business. Exactly. And that's exactly why, this pot, like, that's exactly why I'm very grateful that he puts you on as like my very first like podcast episode, because very much so, like, you are living a life of leveling up to solve bigger and bigger problems for his kingdom, right? And it's very evident to me, right? Because, like, you've gone from, I guess, from the ATM to the marketing owner to the networker to the relationships, and now you've gone to hiring and providing a purpose, and then it's even leveling you up. And this is why I want to really provide you some really good value, is because the way I see it is, you've gained the skills and mastery, and you showed obedience to level you up to a point where you are literally doing, well, I think what Peter or Paul, I'm not the best at the Bible verses just yet, but where he says to Jesus asked, what should I do? Oh, no, Peter or Paul asked, what should we do? And he responds, help feed my sheep.
Yeah.
And so I'll have that verse somewhere, and I'll post it today, but that's what you're doing. You're now at this position where God has leveled you up in terms of mastery of hiring, in terms of mastery of building relationships, in terms of mastery of seeing problems and solving them, and then going through the fire of learning how to do the things that were so beyond you, so that you could know what good looks like, right? Learning how to take life and what you're doing in life, what he's putting you in life, to bring it back to the scripture, to now learn more from the word of God, because you know what? The things that he's tested you with and the problems that he's brought into your way has allowed you to now level you up, your mind. He's renewed your mind. So that allows you to go back to him. And then now you have a new mind and a new perspective to then understand your journey. And so that's what I believe you are doing, friends, because you are absolutely helping to feed the sheep through your educational program, through your therapy introduction to your employees. He's blessing you and your business to allow you to lead more people. And the best thing is you are leading people to him. And that is what we're here to do. And so, like, brother, it's so awesome to have like learned about your story, because like you are living the, you know, what Jesus tells us to do, feed his sheep. And so like us as entrepreneurs and us as like kingdom builders for the kingdom, for his kingdom, you know, we don't have the ego. I don't want any credibility. I don't want any of this. I didn't even ask for this podcast. I didn't even ask for my business. I didn't ask for any of this, you know, and I'm sure you could feel the same. And so like, that's where it's just like, those who are exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who will humble themselves will be exalted. And so God uses the most sort of like undeserving / you know, people of the world would think, why would he use you?
Yeah.
You know, but he uses those people to bless, because it shows the power. And so the power of God has been so evident in your story. Do I have that correct?
Yes. Oh yeah. 100%. I'll very concise. I like that.
That's good. That's good. Any thoughts, any reflection of like my interpretation of your story? Because that's the first time I heard of it, and I just took notes.
I have to, man. Well, first off, I definitely have to say, like, I know I said concise, but my tendency, something I've been working on, is I tend to kind of word vomit, and I throw a bunch of ideas and words out there, and you took everything I gave you and you made it into a really nice, concise, like the story.
Yeah.
And I like the way that you did that, man. You definitely have a gift there. I can see why we got you on the podcast, man. Why you guys are doing this? That's awesome. I really appreciate that, because it does give. Now, I say this too because it also does help give me more clarity onto what I've done with God and through God, and what that might mean for the future too. So I definitely.
Nice.
I think the one thing is it's really easy to focus on what's going on today, like all the calls and emails and messages I have to read and go through, and even just like later today. But this has been a great way for me to kind of step back and remember why I'm doing this.
He's your rock. He's literally been the rock this entire time.
Exactly. And it really is his business. So like, and then looking like for the future too, like, okay, well, what's, you know, today, like I'll take care of all of the tasks that needs to be taken care of today. That's fine. But the future, like how else are we going to grow this? What direction is God going to give me, and where am I walking to next? I guess is the way I would put it. So I think it brings that excitement back. I do really enjoy talking about this stuff.
Amazing.
About sharing the story. It's kind of how do I put it? I don't know. It makes me feel very happy.
Dude, hey, this is church. This is what church is. This is church. This is truly and honestly fellowship in the Lord, and fellowship to glorify his power. And you're just living testimony of that. And so by you being willing to talk about that, you are also putting your faith into work, right? And this is what we are doing to feed the sheep. And so my message is just to be heard. I mean, that's my calling. I don't know what that means. I have no idea what that is going to do and what that's going to like be, but I just allow God to lead me. And so I know, and then even as like a entrepreneur, like even knowing like your, you know, how to spend your money and how to do this, that, the other, you don't necessarily know how to like do that. And like, it's such a mental barrier to try to like get to that point. And, you know, for me and my particular sort of like situation recently is like, getting all this like sort of stuff and getting all these assets, like I don't know what to do with it. And it just reminds me as like, this isn't my business.
Yeah.
This is God's business. And so if God gives me my business, because he literally gave me my business name. When I say it, and I'll do a whole episode, and we could actually do another episode as well, just really talking about that. It's just like next level marketing is literally given to me by God. I'm not kidding when I say that. I didn't want a business. I didn't want anything like, and so what that is just like, how do I level people up, and how do I level, people who have a message to say, and a community, and a purpose to give to the world, and how do I level that up? Right now, it's been through marketing. But brother, you're leveling up, and you're leveling people up, and you're feeding the sheep. And so I think that if you continue to lead your life and your business life, I mean, that's what's so evident, like throughout every sort of situation you've been in these last, 7+ years.
Yeah.
Every situation you've been in has been, God has been your rock, and you've given it all to him. And I think that obedience is what has blessed you today. And it will continue to bless you, because now he's able to bless others through you. The same way that I think you mentioned, like, you're able to bless others.
Yes.
Because of the business.
Yeah.
He's able to bless you to bless others because your obedience to him. So, this is church, right? This is literally, we're talking about God, and we're talking about business. And the goal of this particular podcast is really just like to provide that sort of like understanding that, you didn't even see yourself back then, where you are today.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what got you here today is not you. It's God.
Exactly.
And it's the power that he provided you, and your willingness to walk in faith, that you just leveled up, and he used these skills to level you up. And so, yeah, man, that's literally, I mean, I'm living God's business, and like, and then it sounds like you're also, would you say that this is God's business?
Oh yeah, this is definitely God's business.
So cool. So what I wanna do now is, like, I know we spent a lot of time just sort of walking through a lot, and I think what would be useful is for us to have another potential episode of this, and we can like walk into the specifics. But I think this was a great time to actually just learn more about your situation, and just like concise it, or what you said, tell it as a story, put it together in a sort of like understanding story. And so what I want you to do here is like, sort of, is there anything that you want people who may be on the fence about following God or leaving their business up to God? Or is there anything that you feel like people should know based on what you've experienced, that, they are entrepreneurs, they want to be entrepreneurs? Is there anything you want to tell them?
I think that it's, if you're an entrepreneur, it's definitely a journey. Running a business, it doesn't matter if you have the same business for your whole life, or you have multiple, or even just life in general, right? It's a journey. You're gonna have lots of ups and downs. So you're gonna have a lot of really, really amazing moments where you're on top of the world, you feel very happy, and you're gonna have some where you feel like you've maybe been knocked down, your ego is bruised. Ego is the problem, right? So maybe you have an ego. It could be whatever the situation, right? What's important is to rely on God regardless of the situation. So I mentioned it earlier, but we always think about relying on God when we're feeling low and when we need the help and to be uplifted. But it's also it's just as important to rely on him and give him thanks when you feel like you're on top of the world. Because when you feel like you're on top of the world, that's when that's really when your ego can get you. And that's when you need to take a step back and remember, well, it's not you who's on top of the world. It's obviously God. And he's blessed you. So there's that. If I'd say for people who are, maybe they've lost faith, or maybe it's someone who's never been introduced to faith before, and they want to, you want to draw closer to God. The best way to do that, like, how would you get to know a friend, right? You're going to talk to them, you're going to learn more about them, get to know them, and that's how you draw closer to them, right? Well, God is he's like a friend. He is our friend. The way you get to know him is through reading the Bible. So read his word. And at first you might read through it, and it might not make a whole lot of sense at the beginning, and that's perfectly fine. What's important is you're putting the effort and you're trying to get to know him, because the more you try to get to know God, the more he's going to try to get to know you, and he will help you. He will bless you and provide understanding. And it might be through a random thought, or maybe you reflect afterwards and it hits you, or maybe it's through church, or maybe it's through another person, right? Maybe you listen to this podcast and you hear something that resonates and you realize, oh, I think I read this somewhere in this one scripture. You go back and all of a sudden things start making sense, right? The point is you have to take an action towards getting to know him. So read, meditate on his word, and pray. And then if you want to take it one more step further, you want like a real life, like an example, right? Like a person, Jesus. He's the best gift we could have ever received as humans. And he perfectly embodies all the qualities and attributes that God wants us to embody ourselves. So read the Gospels. If you really want to start, just read the Gospels. And then you can go back to Genesis and read everything afterwards, and you can go through the whole Bible. But I'd say that's probably my advice for people.
Dude, that's amazing advice, man. I agree with that 100%. All right, and then to close off, what I want you to do, if you feel called to do, just say your name, and if you feel like it is God's business, just like I could just say Jonathan Deleon, and this is God's business. So just if you feel called to do that, just go ahead. All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
My name is Jonathan Trevino, and this is God's Business Podcast.
Hey, brother, good job. That's super cool. Let me stop the recording there. And then, what do you think?
That was awesome, man.